The mornings in Grey Ridge moved slower than time itself. Fog clung to the cracked pavement like forgotten dreams, and the whistle of the freight train at 6:12 a.m. was the only proof the world still turned. Nate Calloway, 17 and already tired of life, stood on his porch watching the mist blur the boundaries between here and nowhere. He pulled his hoodie tighter. The fabric still smelled faintly of engine grease and old pine. His father's scent. His father, who left 3 winters ago and hadn't called since. Nate's eyes flicked to the empty driveway, where an old motorcycle used to sit like a promise. "Hey, slowpoke, you coming or what?" shouted Jax, his best friend from the road. Nate grabbed his backpack and jogged down, his boots slapping against damp concrete. Jax was already pedaling his bike towards school, their ritual half-race, half-escape. As Nate followed on foot, he couldn't help but feel it again. That creeping shadow just behind him. It wasn't a real one, not exactly. More like a weight, a whisper. "You'll never be more than this town." Grey Ridge High loomed like a mausoleum, windows fogged with condensation and disinterest. Teachers droned and students drifted. But inside Nate, something simmered. He didn't know what. A scream maybe, a sprint, a chance to run until the silence broke. At lunch, Jax passed him a flyer. "There's a statewide track meet in 4 months. Open entries, cash prize. Winner gets scouted." Nate scoffed. "What, you think I can outrun my genetics?" "No," Jax said seriously, "but maybe your shadow." Nate looked at the flyer. A spark, small and strange, flickered inside him. Hope? No, something older. But he stuffed the flyer in his pocket. That night in bed, he heard the whistle of the 6:12 train again. But this time it sounded like it was calling him. The attic still smelled like sawdust and storm clouds. Nate hadn't come up here since his father left, but now the light from his phone cut through years of dust like a knife through old memories. Boxes, yellowed newspaper clippings, and a cracked leather duffel bag sat where they had always been. He knelt beside it and unzipped it slowly, heart pounding. Running shoes. His father's. Size 11. Worn but kept clean. Beneath them lay a bundle of crumpled race bibs and a photo. His father mid-stride, young and defiant, number 147 pinned to his chest. Beside him in the photo, a boy with familiar eyes. Nate, at 5. He stared at the photo until tears smudged the edges. His father never talked about the races, never said why he stopped. The house creaked. Rain tapped on the roof like hesitant fingers. Nate whispered into the dimness, "Why'd you give up?" But silence answered. Later, over cold cereal, Nate looked at his mom. Her eyes were tired, her smile thin. Did Dad ever talk about running? She didn't flinch, but her spoon paused. Only once, said the race always caught up, eventually. He thought about that, about the shadow always just behind him. That night, he laced up his sneakers, not his dad's, not yet, just his own. He jogged to the high school track, alone under a sky riddled with stars. Each step was clumsy, breath shallow, knees burning, but he kept moving until he heard footsteps. He stopped, no one there. But the sound continued, echoing in rhythm. Nate turned, heart in his throat, and then he saw it, the shadow, still behind him, closer now. The next morning, Nate woke before dawn. The air still held the chill of night, and Grey Ridge lay wrapped in fog thick enough to drown in. He dressed in silence, grabbed a water bottle, and slipped outside before the world woke. The track felt different at that hour. Empty. Sacred. He warmed up, heart pounding not from nerves, but from something hungrier. He started to run. Not well, not fast. But he ran, and he kept running. Every day, after school, before sunrise, in rain, through pain. Some days he collapsed on the grass, lungs screaming. Other days, he caught glimpses of something else, a rhythm, a beat that felt like it came from deep inside his chest. Jax cheered him on, timed his laps, biked alongside him on longer routes. "You're starting to float, man," he said once. "Like your feet forget the ground." But Nate still felt the shadow, not always behind him now. Sometimes beside him, sometimes ahead. He asked Coach Alvarez, the old track coach who barely spoke to anyone anymore, for help. The man blinked behind thick glasses. "Why now, Calloway?" "Because I'm tired of being chased." Alvarez nodded once and said, "Then stop running scared. Run like you're already free." The stadium was louder than Nate imagined. Noise swelled like a storm, and the smell of heat and adrenaline clung to everything. His name was called. Lane 5. He stepped onto the track, heart a war drum. In the crowd, he saw his mother. Saw Jax yelling like a madman, and next to them, a man in a leather jacket, beard a little grayer, eyes he knew like mirrors. His father. The starting gun cracked. Nate ran, everything narrowed. Breath, sound, space. He felt the shadow surge up beside him. He didn't fight it this time, he welcomed it. And then he passed it, feet burning, lungs fire, heart flight. When he crossed the finish line, he didn't know if he'd won, didn't care, because he had outrun something bigger. He looked up to the stands, his father was gone. But the shadow, it wasn't chasing anymore. It was part of him. Medals clanked. Reporters buzzed. Nate's name was said aloud by strangers for the first time. But when the lights dimmed, when the bus rolled out of the city and back into the soft nothingness of Grey Ridge, Nate sat with a strange stillness. Victory hadn't erased the ache. It had only given it a name. At home, he sat with his mom in the kitchen. She poured him tea. He was there, wasn't he? Nate nodded. She looked down. "He came once too, after you were born. Left a photo in the mailbox. Said he didn't know how to stay." Nate pulled the race photo from his pocket, now worn and bent. Maybe he never outran his own shadow. She looked at him, and for the first time in years, her eyes softened. "But you might." A week later, a letter arrived. No return address, just his name printed in block letters. Inside, one sentence. "I saw you run." No signature. Nate read it a dozen times, and then he ran again. Not for a prize, not from the past, just because he could. Coach Alvarez offered him a spot at a summer training camp upstate. Nate hesitated. Grey Ridge had always felt like a loop, a treadmill of broken men repeating the same regrets. But maybe, just maybe, stepping away was the real race. He took the offer. The camp was brutal, new rivals, real competition, no jacks, no comfort. But every mile, he felt lighter. And when he ran under the redwoods, he didn't hear footsteps behind him, just his breath, and birds, and wind. Late one night in August, Nate returned home. The house looked smaller, the town quieter. Jax was waiting on the porch. "They scouted you, didn't they?" Nate smiled. "They did." But he was there for something else. He walked to the old park where a rusted bike rack leaned against a tree, and there, sitting on the bench, was his father. Older, gaunter, but undeniably him. No words at first, just two sets of eyes. Then, "You ran well." Nate sat beside him. "I ran true." They spoke until sunrise, not of apologies, not of blame, but of breath and silence, and how hard it is to stay. His father handed him something, his old stopwatch. "I kept time," he said, "even when I was gone." Nate slipped it into his pocket. The weight wasn't heavy, just honest. Months passed. Seasons turned. Nate left Grey Ridge again, not to escape it, but to carry it with him. He ran for a university, broke records, studied hard, laughed louder. But every once in a while, in new cities and unfamiliar lanes, he'd feel it, that soft rhythm behind him. And he'd smile, because the shadow was still there, but it was running with him now. What we have listened till now, the moral is, young Nate, he thought he was just running laps around a dusty track, but really, he was chasing something far greater. You see, child, in life, we all carry shadows, doubts, fears, the echoes of those who left too soon or said too little. But here's the truth many never learn. You don't beat your shadow by running from it. You beat it by running with it, until it becomes your strength, not your burden. Because the race that matters most isn't against time or trophies or the world's expectations. It's the race against the part of you that says you'll never be more than where you came from. And if you keep going, if you dare to run true, one day, you'll look beside you and find that your shadow is no longer chasing you, it's cheering for you.